What is up, Scream Team? Zach Cherry here, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you my Scream 7 predictions, including who is going to survive, who's going to die, and who is going to be the Ghostface killer or killers. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn those bell notifications on so you can get alerted to all upcoming Scream content, because there's going to be a lot of it with the new movie coming out. As I've done in the past, this is all going to be compiled on a tier list, which you can do as well. I'll put the link down to your own blank tier list in the descriptions below. The 5 categories we're gonna have here are Ghostface, survive, die, non-playable characters, and non-canon, and more on that in a second. I believe there are 22 characters altogether, either listed on IMDb or from other sources, so I'm just gonna go with everything that I know, which honestly is not a whole lot. But with that said, let's just get the obvious out of the way. I think that Sidney is going to survive. They could throw a curveball at us and kill her off, but at this point in the franchise, just even bringing her back, like, it would just be such a slap in the face to the fandom to decide this is the one where we're going to kill her off, especially with how upset people were that she wasn't in 6. I don't think that she would ever be the killer. I've talked about this many times before. It just would not make any sense. And I echo the same sentiments with Gale, who Gale would never be the killer. Now, will Gale survive or will she die? This is the quandary that I have. Right now, my gut is telling me that she's going to survive. The reason for this is because they already killed off Dewey in 5, and that was a huge upset for a lot of the fan base, and it seems like they're even have regretted that since making that decision. We also had her come to a very near-death experience in Scream 6, so it just feels like it would be kind of redundant to have that happen again for a 3rd time. So as easy as it is, I feel that the main characters of just like at least these legacy characters of Sidney and Gale are probably going to live because of just fan outrage. Now, I don't think that's going to be every legacy character. Really, what even constitutes a legacy character? Because for me, it's the people who've been around from the start. So that doesn't necessarily apply to Chad and Mindy here, who I don't think are going to be as safe. I'm actually a little confused about where they're going to fit in with this movie, because they don't really know Sidney all that well. I mean, they didn't share any scenes with her in Scream 5. Really, Gale is the only one that they've interacted with out of the cast here, and even then, I feel like that connection is very tenuous. That's not to say that it's not something that can be built on, but maybe their storyline is somehow connected to Gale, or they could be the opening scene murder. I would lean more towards having more to do with Gale and actually being in the full movie proper. I think that one of them will die. And I'm gonna say Mindy. The reason for this is twofold. One is that, she's kind of echoing Randy. And if there's anything that we've seen with at least 5 and 6 is that they really like to go back and homage things in a way where, history repeats itself. The other reason is that I feel like her injuries in the past have not been as severe as Chad's. That I feel like Chad will probably survive because I could just see him having an easier time this time around, just based on the fact that he got stabbed 7 million times and survived in 6 alone. So I think that they're going to give him a break, and I can't see all 4 of these guys surviving. 6 played it really safe. We had 7 survivors altogether, so there's got to be casualties, especially with how big this cast is. Now, this is where things get a little interesting, because we have 3 returning characters who are all canonically deceased, and that is Dewey, Stu, and Roman. Now, what I'm going to just lump all these guys into is non-canon. What that means is, there's several things. It could be that these are all part of dream sequences or flashbacks. The franchise has never really gone that route other than Maureen in Scream 3, so I don't necessarily think that that's going to be a thing that's happening here. At least I can't see Sidney suddenly having nightmares about Roman or Stu, and I think that anything with Dewey would probably be more relegated to Gale. But what I am kind of leaning towards, and this has been a popular theory, that the killer or killers in this movie are going to be very AI centric, or focused, meaning that whatever their motive is or something is going to have to do with AI in the movies. And part of that scheme is going to be that they're creating AI videos of these former characters who are dead. So we're going to be seeing Roman, Stu, and Dewey come back in a way that is not actually canon with what's going on, but just more so these AI effects that are somehow going to be creepy and haunt the surviving characters right now. Now, why just these specific three? Because it doesn't seem like any of the other past killers or past deceased characters are coming back at all. I think that with Dewey, that's obviously going to be more so a way to get under Gale's skin. With Roman, I guess, depending on like who these killers are, what their motive is, this could be something that's related to Roman. I've heard a lot of theories about like relatives of Roman or relatives of Stu. I think that maybe it's just more so the familial connection. He was Sidney's half-brother. That does beg the question of like, why is Jill not included in this, being the cousin and all? But I think that, actually, I don't know what really the purpose of Roman is. With Stu, I've got a little bit more of an idea, and I'll get to that in a bit, but all of these characters, they're going to be there in spirit. It's not going to be a corporeal, in the flesh and blood thing. Now, everyone else here, just bear in mind that there are some character names. Nothing is official yet, so as it was with Screams 5 and 6, these names are subject to change. So the first one is Tatum, who is Sidney's daughter. This is played by Isabel May, and I am thinking that she is going to survive. That would be my gut instinct here. It just would feel like a huge gut punch to Sidney to kill off her daughter. Now, that's not to say that it's out of the realm of possibilities, but I'm getting the sense that this is going to be another safe movie. I'm just going to put it out there. With this new era of Scream, it leans more into the comedy than the actual horror. And, you know, I'm not trying to say this as a criticism. This is just a predictions video, so I'm just going by my instinct and just based on what we've seen already. You know, I'm sure there's going to be some rough and tumble with her and Sidney and all these people who survive, but ultimately I can't see them killing off Sidney's daughter. Like, we've run the gamut with Sidney, just in terms of like everywhere where she's been in life, the going into hiding, the depression, all of that stuff. And I just feel that like putting her in that dark place again, you know, whether this is the last movie or there's going to be more moving forward and she's going to be back, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see like movies about trauma. So I'm hoping that this character survives just for Sidney's sake. The next one, his name is Ben, and that is played by Sam Reckner. This is Tatum's boyfriend. Now, apparently, based on like the little bits that I've read, is that Sidney does not trust this character. She does not trust the boyfriend. Now, that to me is like, that could be a red flag, because Sidney's instincts are usually very on point with things. But the question is like, does she already like have a relationship with him where she doesn't trust him, or does she just stop trusting him once the murders start? That's the question here. Because if she's just like never really liked this kid, that's one thing. But if she thinks that he's the killer, then she might be right. I mean, as cliche as it has been for the boyfriend to turn out to be the killer, I can see it happening again. I feel that there's going to be a little bit more nuance with that, and I'll get to that as I go through these next few characters. But I'm going to say that he is going to be one of the Ghostface killers. Now, the next character we have is Chloe, who is played by Celeste O'Connor. I am going to say that she's also going to be a Ghostface. In fact, I have 3 theories who the killers are altogether. In these 3 scenarios, she is the killer in 2 of them. I guess she's the best friend to Tatum, or Sidney's daughter. So I'm just seeing some sort of level of betrayal there, but I'm thinking that it's going to be her, and then also this character named Hannah, who's played by McKenna Grace, that she's going to be a Ghostface killer as well. And then that brings us to Lucas, is that his name? Played by Asa German. And I'm gonna say that he is also a Ghostface killer. And this is going to be my theory. I think these are all the Ghostface killers. There's going to be 4 of them, and they're working as a team. This is going to be a scenario sort of like based on this thrown away storyline from Scream 3, if Kevin Williamson had initially written it, which was kind of like a cult of Ghostface killers. I think that they're going to be AI-obsessed kids and Stu-obsessed kids, and that's literally what we're going to see. Like that section of the fandom who thinks that Stu is still alive and pushes that narrative, that is going to be who the killers are in this scenario. And I don't know if that necessarily means that they think that he's alive, but they're going to at least be pushing that in terms of like this AI. I also think this gives a lot of opportunity to do what Kevin Williamson wanted to do, which was kind of like do all these fake out deaths and then have them kind of rise up at the end and surprise our protagonists. So in that case, with 4 of them running around, they can really kind of like throw in that misdirection of like who is the killer, because like at any given point they can all seem like unsuspecting victims and then get picked off one by one. The second theory that I have is that the killers are just Chloe and Hannah. Scream 5 and 6 has kind of been about gimmicks and doing the things that have not been done yet. Like, let's have a opening scene victim who survives, or let's have the killer revealed in the opening scene and then get killed off. And then let's have 3 killers or 4. So in this case, if it was just the 2 of them, it would be kind of like filling this quota of just like having 2 female killers at the same time. And I think that if we do go that route, it would sort of be like an homage to Billy and Stu, but the female versions of that. So that's my theory number 2. But obviously the first one is that the 4 of these guys are Ghostface killers. So because of that, I'm going to say that Mark Evans, who's played by Joel McHale, who is Sidney's husband, he is not a Ghostface killer. I guess, I mean, like I said, I have not been following the production of this movie very closely, but Patrick Dempsey was in consideration to come back and play the character of Mark, and that was always the plan, and that was the idea with Scream 5, with announcing that Sidney had married Mark, but just because of scheduling conflicts or contracts or whatever, he declined to do it. So for that reason, I don't think that there would have been like this major rewrite, but if a surviving character from the past came back, I just couldn't see them being Ghostface, and if this was meant to be Mark Kincaid from Scream 3, I just couldn't see him suddenly being the killer. Like, that kind of undermines Sidney's intellect as well, that she would get married to someone who is just untrustworthy. So with it in mind that Patrick Dempsey's character was always supposed to be this character, I think that they would just sort of carry over all of the elements to that, and he wouldn't be the killer, but I don't think he's going to survive either. And I think that that's probably going to be one of the big upsets for Sidney, because I feel that that will probably be easier for her to deal with than her daughter being killed. Next up, we have Anna Camp, who is playing a character named Jessica. This is supposed to be Sidney's neighbor and friend or best friend. Now, I personally think that Anna Camp, or Jessica in this case, being the killer would be very predictable. I think that she's going to be a huge red herring. Her and her son, which is Lucas. And the thing is, like, if she were to be Ghostface, let's just put her up here for a second, none of these guys are going to be the killer. Would that mean that her son is the killer as well? Because I can't see a scenario where she is the killer and her son isn't. Like, that would be pretty dark if she was, and maybe like he was a victim, or potentially she doesn't intend for him to be the victim, but he is killed off anyway, and she sort of like takes that out on Sidney or whatever. I think it would be more likely that they would be working together. And the thing with that is that we just came from a Scream movie where we saw a parent working with their children as Ghostface killers. So it just feels like it would be very repetitive. Now, I still think that this theory has some weight. I do think that this might be the 3rd most likely outcome of my predictions. Also, I'm not too sure about this character, who I'll get to in a second, but I mean, like, it's possible that he could be her husband and they're just like a family unit that are killing together. But I am going to hold fast to the theory that it's going to be these 4 altogether, which, you know, makes me think that Jessica is going to be a character that dies. She'll be a major red herring, but she will die. It's like, I can see scenarios where like a child will kill their parent, and we've seen that in the past, obviously, with Roman and Maureen, but I can't see the reversal of that. There's just something a little too perverse about that I don't think that the Scream franchise would do that. If they did, kudos to them, but I'm just not seeing it happen. So that brings us to this character played by Ethan Embry, whose name is Kyle. I really don't have any info or knowledge about who he is. That's why I just speculate, like possibly he is Jessica's husband. At any rate, I think that he is going to die as well. Now, next up we have Robbie Rivers, played by Mark Consuelos. And this, I believe, is like a rival of Gale, like another journalist or reporter that I think will factor in very heavily with Gale's storyline. I hope that Gale has a full-fledged storyline. One of my fears with Scream 7 is that it's going to kind of go the Scream 4 route, where there's just like an oversaturation of characters, that there's so many storylines that each one doesn't really get the proper time that it deserves. So, you know, if this is the case, if we're doing a thing where it's just like there's a Sidney storyline and a Gale storyline, there will probably be a teenagers storyline as well. Either way, it's going to be very overloaded, but I think that this is going to be a character who obviously is not going to be Ghostface. He's not going to be an NPC. I think that he'll die. You know, this movie needs to have a body count. We can't have a whole bunch of survivors. So I'm guessing that he will be a victim. The next two characters, there's no names that I could find. The actors are Jimmy Tatro and Michelle Randolph. They were kind of announced separate from everybody else, like after the fact, which leads me to believe they might be the opening scene victims. I don't know how old, like most of this young cast, like they're in their mid-20s, and I think that these two are around the same age, like maybe like early 30s as well, but I can see a scenario where they're just hiring late 20s and 30-year-olds to play high school students. They're kind of giving me like a Casey and Steve vibe in a way, so I'm just gonna put them in die. These next two are also unnamed characters. The actors are Amy Louise Pemberton and Victor Turpin, and apparently they're going to be deputies. Also, I should have mentioned that Mark Evans is the sheriff of whatever town they live in. They're not in Woodsboro, so these are his deputies. I think that they're for sure going to be NPCs, and the reason for that is because, you know, based on Scream 5, like the deputies in that movie were non-characters. In Scream 6, there were so many NPCs, like all of the victims of that movie were technically NPCs. And just for clarity, if we're going back to Scream 2, I'd say that Officer Andrews and Officer Richards are also NPCs, but they did die. So I'm not saying that an NPC character doesn't belong in the die category as well, so I'll probably put them here, but I don't think that they're going to be actual characters in that regard. Whereas this guy, who's listed as Neighbor, played by Scott Allen Frederick, you know, I can just see like he's an NPC, and he probably won't factor into the story very much at all. That brings us to George, played by Timothy Simons, who is apparently the high school drama teacher. The thing is, like, he is not listed on IMDb. This comes from Scream News on Twitter, so I don't know if this is absolutely true or not. I think that it's kind of suspect that he's not listed on IMDb, like this is just some sort of like fan casting. Timothy Simons, I only know him from the show Veep. Now, because he's a more well-known actor, I think that he's not going to be an NPC if he is an actual character in this movie, but I'm wondering if he is sort of like the high school drama teacher, and like apparently there's this storyline where they're putting on some school play. Could there be a chance that he is the killer, or like the mentor to these kids and like part of the Stu fascination and the AI thing? But the thing is, it's just like, I don't know if this is actually a character in the movie, and maybe they're keeping it under wraps because he is the killer and they don't want to like publicize that he's in it. I think that he is going to die, but I could see a possibility, like if this is a character in the movie, you know, he could be a Ghostface, and there could be like all 5 of these, and maybe he's the link to Stu that everyone is talking about. Like, you know, like people are saying that Jessica is related to Stu, like she's Leslie Mocker, and they're going to be another scenario where the past killer's relatives are coming after them. Like, again, we just did that in Scream 6, and it was done in Scream 2. And I think as well, like, how would Sidney not remember Leslie Mocker? That's the thing. Sidney grew up in this small town of Woodsboro with all these people who were her friends. Even if she wasn't that close to Stu. There's got to be a level afterwards, knowing who the family is. Even if she didn't recognize her, Sidney's going to be the type of character who looks into people's backgrounds. So if like this is her neighbor and best friend, she's gonna like find out everything, like past criminal records, all that stuff. Because if she doesn't, it's gonna make her look foolish, like it did with Kirby and Gale in Scream 6 for not knowing that Detective Bailey was Richie's father. So I can't see a familial connection with Stu. This guy, you know, if he is a character or not, he could be the ringleader of all these guys, but he might not even be a character in the movie because it's not on IMDb. That's how little I know at the moment. But let's just say he's going to die if he is one. And if he isn't, you know, I didn't predict it 100%, but I'll just say that I put it out there. Anyway, those are my initial predictions for Scream 7. I want to thank my Patreon supporters, Sean White, Ben Blucher, Jem, Craig Lynn, and Adrian Phillips. If you want to see even more Scream-related content, you can click on either one of these playlists over here. Until next time, I've been Zach Cherry, and I'll be right back.